Hi, this is George from The Return of the King. After the last video I shot, which was on Monday, I had this little conversation with God. You know, a lot of us are getting tired, we're getting weary. We can see the tribulation knocking at the door, but we're really getting drained. And, you know, I don't like to produce videos and then have nothing happen. I don't like myself to personally get, you know, amped up over something and then be disappointed, and I don't like to do that for other people. So it's getting pretty serious with God here. If you want to, you know, keep me doing these videos, you know, you've got to show me something. I don't care what it is, but you've got to do something. And sure enough, that night I had quite the incredible dream. And I'm going to be covering that in a moment. But before I tell you about the dream, I want to read something from the Apostle Paul from Timothy 4. And this is the Apostle Paul speaking right before his death. This is what he says. He says, "For I am already being poured out like a drink offering, and the time of my departure is at hand. I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. From now on there is laid up for me the crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, will award to me on that day, and not only to me, but to all who crave his appearing." Okay, now here's the dream. In this dream, I'm running a marathon race, and I'm running this marathon race in Egypt. I'm running this marathon with a Christian friend that I work with from work. This marathon takes us to all the interesting sites in Egypt. I can remember seeing the pyramids off in the distance. A lot of it was run in the desert. The dream starts late in the race, right around the 20-mile mark. At the 20-mile mark, we're just kind of having a casual conversation. We're just kind of jogging along, kind of casually. And at this point, I decided, you know, I'm gonna kick it up here, and I'm gonna take off, and you know, I'm going for the finish. And so I'm gonna kind of like leave him behind. And so what I do is I have my little sport watch here. It's the exact same one I have wearing here. It's a Garmin. And I start to play with the watch. You know, push buttons, and the thing's not working. I can't get to my data. I can't get connected to my phone to, you know, find my map stuff. I can't monitor my heart rate. I can't monitor where I am in the race, how many miles I've covered. All these really things are really important to me to finish the race. I spend a lot of time trying to get the watch to work because I really need this watch to work. And so I really don't know exactly where I am. So what I do is I just start following other runners. I can see them running, and it's taking us into the city area, like the downtown area. And there's a lot of people. This thing isn't like your ordinary marathon where they block off the streets. You're just running in traffic. You're running down the sidewalks. And then you're running into these places, and you're circling all around. And so I get to one place where I'm looking here, and I turn around, and then I realize that I'm lost. And so what I do is I follow some other runners, and then I find a sign. And the sign shows me where I'm at. And this is here what the, here's what's going on here. This was basically the marathon was sneaking all over the place, and I get to this sign, and it shows me I'm right here at this top, and then it makes this odd V-shape thing here. You know, the rest is all sinking around, and then the finish is just this V-shape, and it's probably about, let's say, 2 miles to go. I'm not really sure, but it's not very far. I'm very close to the end of the race. At the time I had the dream, it just hit me as being odd, this V-shape, and it really turns out, and I just discovered this today when I was kind of going through what I'm going to be covering here, is that this V-shape is very, very important. It's a particular angle, and it relates to something with the pyramids, and it's pretty exciting. If you've watched like my previous video, I talk about how we don't really know the time. We don't know when the feast days are, and so we're kind of lost. Well, this dream basically enforces that, where I don't really know. We know that we're very, very close. And like what I had read before from Paul, you know, it was about a race, fighting the good fight, finished the race, kept the faith. He says, you know, the time of my departure is at hand. You know, and it says that the crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, will award me on that day, and not only to me, but to all who crave his appearing. And so God is telling us basically that we are so close to the finish line here. And I think it's going to be in the next couple of months at the latest. I mean, I think it's going to occur before December. It could occur as early as October 3rd, and I'm hoping that's what it's going to be here. You know, and the race takes place in Egypt, and you wonder, well, why does it take place in Egypt? Well, back in 2017, I made a video. It was called Revelation 12, the throne room, the two witnesses, and the coming of the Antichrist. And in that video, I discuss the pyramids, I discuss Orion's belt and the connection to the pyramids. And there's something here is what's called the Christ angle. And that's what we see in my drawing here. And like I said, I didn't realize that until today when I was going through my video and looking at all the stuff I'd done back in 2017. And I see now how this all fits together, and it's actually pretty exciting. So I'm going to flip over here and we're going to talk about that. I'm going to go back to the slides and we'll go over the pyramids and the Christ angle and how it relates to Revelation 12 sign, and it's really cool, and I think you'll find it interesting. This is a screenshot of the video I made back in September of 2017. The video was called Revelation 12, the throne room, the two witnesses, the coming of the Antichrist. The video starts at the 15-minute mark here. What you see here is an article that a lot of the information comes from. It was written by Daniel Matson of watchfortheday.org. So if you'd like to go and read the whole article, because I'm going to go through it really quickly, you can go to his website and look that up. I'm at his website now, and we're at the article called The Oracle in Stone. And it's a really big article, and I just want to cover a few things here. I'll show you here. Talks about the Christ angle. This is for people, if you want to go and look at this and get into more detail on this, it's a really good article. Basically, the Christ angle here is 26 degrees, 18 minutes. It's one of the shafts in the pyramid. I'll get to that in a little bit. But if you place that angle and you go straight east from the base of the pyramid, it points to Bethlehem. And so that's why it's called the Christ angle. What's interesting here, on September 20th, 3 days before the Revelation 12 sign, Venus and Regulus are in conjunction. They're basically right on top of each other. On that particular day, they're at the Christ angle, and at the same time they're at the Christ angle, if you go to what's called the Primarine, I'll talk about that a little bit, and I'll show what that is. If you go vertical, from there you have this star in the belt of Orion. It's called El Nitka. The wounded one is at the meridian. And so these are all interesting things. There's a whole bunch of other stuff that I don't have time to cover. Here's the angle they're talking about here. The Christ angle is this shaft here, and there's a whole ton of things you can read and learn about that if you want. But that's basically, it's a lot more than I want to cover in this video. So I'm going to jump now to the next slide here. Okay, we're looking at the heavens on 9/20. 5 in the morning on 2017 from the Earth at Giza, and this is the horizon here, and this is the sun and the moon. The sun is just rising here, and what we're going to show, I'm going to show what the Christ angle is. We measure this distance from here to here. The sun and everything has enough width to it, so there's kind of a range, but the Christ angle is typically 26 degrees, 18 minutes, and 9 seconds, and this is all well within that range, and this is the time of year that the sun and Regulus are spaced at that distance. It just also happens to be on the 20th when we're having the conjunction with Regulus. And then, let's see here, turn this off so I can spin. So, and then I'll show you the slide. I'll come back to that in a second. This is what's called the Primarine. So if you go due south at the exact same time, the sun is rising. It's passing through the star here. It's called El Nitka, the wounded one, and that's at meridian. And there's a whole story between. This is also this is like the Good Shepherd too, and he's slaying the lion. The lion represents Satan here. There's a whole story behind all that stuff too. But again, this video I'm not going to have time to cover that. Okay, here we're back to the slide here, and what we're looking at here, as you can see, here's the Christ angle, and here's Regulus again in conjunction, and this is what I showed you here with the on the prime meridian at the Giza pyramids. This star El Nitka, the wounded one, is at meridian. It's basically straight south going up, and then remember too, at the pyramids there's the Sphinx, and the Sphinx was believed originally to be just a lion because of the erosion on the body. The body has much more erosion than the head of the woman does. And so it was originally believed that it was a lion. And so at the pyramids, we have a lion looking to the east, and Leo, during this period of time, rises directly in the east. And now if we look at my dream here again, and it took me about 5 days to figure out what this V was. I just knew it was weird, and it's 5 days since I had the dream when I'm recording this right now. And I remember seeing, the race just kind of snaked all over Timbuktu in here, and then I got lost in here, and then I found a sign, and this showed me where this is as you're here, and then the race goes down, up, and finish. And again, this is point number 1, 2, and 3. Again, the number 3 is going to come up over and over in this video here as I keep going. The thing I was thinking about, the Christ angle kind of goes like this, and I was wondering, well, why does this V face up? Well, the reality is I think this has to do with ascension. We're going to send up to Christ, and our finish is up here, so our finish is up in heaven. So I think that's why this was done that way in the dream versus like going, let's say, facing the east or something. What we're looking at here is a Revelation 12 sign on 9/19, basically 2 hours before midnight, and you can see that Venus here is just on this side of Regulus, and then you can see it keeps moving, and then on the 20th, it's the closest to Regulus at around 4 in the morning, and then just keeps moving away. If we just run this here, you can see keeps moving, and then on the 21st, here's the 22nd, and then on the 23rd, this is Revelation 12 sign. If we keep pushing it out here, you can see the moon down here keeps moving, and we got plenty of time until it gets under the feet. And so we have Jupiter that was in the womb of Virgo here for 9 months, has passed out through the womb and through here, is out passed through the legs, and this is the birth, and then we have the moon under her feet. And then Leo consists of 9 stars, and then you've got Venus, Mars, and Mercury making up the 12 stars for the crown. What we're looking at here is we're looking at the conjunction between Venus and Regulus, and this is what I believe is the sign of the return of Jesus Christ to come and get his bride. And that's basically based on what we see here. Let's go to the next slide. What we see here, this is what the heavens look like at the time of Christ's birth. We had a conjunction between Jupiter and Regulus. This occurred on September 11th, 3 BC. Some people believe this is the day that Christ was born. Others believe he was born later on Tabernacles because the theme of Tabernacles is Christ dwelling among us. Really don't know for sure. And just like the sign here that is going to appear on October 3rd, we don't know if this is the day that Christ will come for his bride to take her home, or if it's sometime, let's say, in the next 2 months. But we're using the Star of Bethlehem kind of as a template to kind of show us, what's coming in the very near future. Now I'm going to talk again about the number 3. Jesus rose after 3 days. It's been 3 years since the Revelation 12 sign. In a Jewish wedding, the bride will circle the groom 3 times before they enter the wedding chamber. 3 days before the Revelation 12 sign, we see the Venus-Regulus conjunction in Leo, and we see it at the Christ angle at sunrise. Remember, the Revelation 12 sign is about the rapture of the church. Now I'm going to show you a particular dream this individual had, and in this dream, on September 30th, it's important, 3 days before October 3rd, and October 3rd is the date that we see the Venus-Regulus conjunction, which I believe is the sign of his soon return. In this dream, on that date of September 30th, 1,000 shofars are blown, and Jesus says, "For I am coming soon."
And as I said, the heavens were alive as well with that. But when suddenly the heavens kind of opened and the storms kind of broke, and my mind and my attention was turned to the end of the month of September, where there was a whole lot of people still praying on that day. And the heavens opened, and I saw the Lord, and he was standing there with angels. And he said very clearly, "Arise, my bride. Arise, my bride, and prepare to pray. Arise, my bride, and prepare for battle." And lastly, he said, arise, my bride, and prepare to see my face. For I'm coming soon, and my reward is with me. And then there was a sound like of 1,000 shofars being blown all at once. And even in the dream, I could feel the wind of those shofars hitting my face. And I woke up, and there was just an overwhelming, peaceful presence, because the Lord said, "Arise, my bride." He only calls us his bride when he's ready to come get us. And I'm not date setting by any means. I'm not saying that October 1st Jesus comes. I'm not saying that. Jesus was just simply telling us that he's about to come. And we know that, we sense that, we realize that.
This was Pastor Dana Coverstone, and he had this dream sometime before July 29th of this year. Now, the date on the calendar that what he's speaking about occurs is on September 30th. And what I want to do next is I want to take a look at the words that were spoken by Christ here. There is meaning and there's purpose behind the way all of this is arranged, and I'm going to show you that. If you notice here, it says, "Arise, my bride, and it comes in pairs, and it's repeated 3 times. Now, according to E.W. Bollinger in his book, Number in Scriptures, in the context in which we're looking here, which is Christ speaking, speaking to his bride. It can mean friendship, help, and deliverance. And remember, Christ, he is our helper, and he is our friend, and he is our deliverer. He's going to deliver us from the coming tribulation. If you look at the number 3, again, it occurs, you have arise my bride, the pairing occurs 3 times, and then prepare to pray, prepare for battle, and prepare to meet my face. This is all in groups of 3, 1, 2, and 3. And that represents, the number 3 represents divine completion or perfection. And then if you add up all of the verses here that are, all the words that are spoken here, you get, there are 9 verses. And that has to do with finality or judgment. And we know that he's going to take us out before the judgment comes. And when we're gone, we're gone. We're entering a new dispensation, and it's pretty final as far as getting on board, getting on the ark, you know. So let's go to the next slide. Next thing I want to talk about is preparing to pray. In this next section, I'm going to be using an article that was written by Richard D. Patterson. It's called The Use of 3 in the Bible. In some instances, the decision to be reached on the 3rd day is preceded by careful spiritual preparation. There's that word, preparation. Prepare to pray, prepare for battle. Thus, before going in to make her request to the Persian king, Queen Esther instructed Mordecai as follows: Go gather together all the Jews who are in Susa and fast for me. Do not eat or drink for 3 days, night or day. I and my maids will fast as you do. When this is done, I will go to the king, even though it is against the law, and if I perish, I perish. In accordance with this period of spiritual preparation, on the 3rd day, Esther put on her royal robes and stood in the inner court of the palace in front of the king's hall and gained entrance to the king's throne. The events that followed are well known. Her people are allowed to take steps to deliver themselves, and the Jew-hating Haman was put to death. Although the plot line of the narrative is filled with tension, the specific mention of 3 days and 3 nights and the use of the 3rd day motif provide a lively expectation for the reader that all will be well and worked out in accordance with God's will. So they pray and fast for 3 days, and then what happens is they meet their king. There's some imagery going on here. It's very possible that we could be meeting our king 3 days from September 30th. 3 days from September 30th is the sign of the return of the king that I showed you a little earlier and I'll be talking about later. So this is really the next 3 days from September, for me anyhow, this is the way I'm going to look at this. This is really be a time to be fasting and praying, even if it's just 1 meal a day. You know, now's a time, you know, to pray. It's always a time to pray for your friends to be saved, but if the rapture occurs on the 3rd, and it may or may not, this is really the last chance that they're going to have before the tribulation. Next, I want to talk about and prepare for battle. The 2 previous incidents regarding decisions and declarations made on the 3rd day by Joseph and Rehoboam point to the use of the 3rd day as a culmination of a proper time of preparation. During the era of the judges, the Israelite tribes were seeking to avenge the Benjaminite atrocity against the Levite's concubine, waited and sought the Lord's mind before going up to confront the forces of Benjamin at Gibeah on the 3rd day. In both cases, the waiting period proved to be proper preparation for the activities on the 3rd day. In both instances, the subsequent action was favorable. Now from Revelation 12, Then a war broke out in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon and his angels fought back. But the dragon was not strong enough, and no longer was any place found in heaven for him and his angels. And the great dragon was hurled down, that ancient serpent called the devil and Satan, the deceiver of the whole world. He was hurled to the earth, and his angels with him. When we go up, they come down. Many believe that Satan will attempt to he's going to try and thwart the rapture. And one of the reasons is this. It's from the book of Daniel. In the book of Daniel, this is what we read. Do not be afraid, Daniel, he said, for from the first day that you purposed to understand and to humble yourself before your God, your words were heard, and I have come in response to them. However, the prince of the kingdom of Persia opposed me for 21 days. Then Michael, one of the chief princes, came to help me, for I had been left there with the kings of Persia. Now I have come to explain to you what will happen to your people in the latter days, for the vision concerning those days. And that's why he says, prepare for battle. There may be a battle from the moment that we are raptured until the time we reach heaven. There could be some type of battle, just like what we saw in the book of Daniel. As we are headed towards heaven, we can see we might be involved in the battle. We could possibly even see the battle between God and his angels against the fallen angels that are on their journey towards the earth. Next, I want to talk about, and prepare to meet my face. What I want to talk about is I want to talk about Joseph here. Joseph's prophetic interpretation of the dreams of the baker and the cupbearer were fulfilled on Pharaoh's birthday, which was also the third day. We both had dreams, they replied, but there is no one to interpret them. Then Joseph said to them, don't interpretations belong to God? Tell me your dreams. So the chief cupbearer told Joseph his dream. In my dream there was a vine before me, and on the vine were 3 branches. As it budded, its blossoms opened, and its clusters ripened into grapes. Pharaoh's cup was in my hand, and I took the grapes, squeezed them into his cup, and placed the cup into his hand. Joseph replied, this is the interpretation. The 3 branches are 3 days. Within 3 days, Pharaoh will lift up your head and restore your position. You will put Pharaoh's cup in his hand, just as you did when you were his cupbearer. Then, on the 3rd day, which was Pharaoh's birthday, he held a feast for all his officials, and in their presence he lifted up the heads of the chief cupbearer and the chief baker. Pharaoh restored the chief cupbaker to his position so that he once again placed the cup in Pharaoh's hand. But what's interesting here, it's on the 3rd day, which was Pharaoh's birthday. On September 30th, 3 days prior to the sign that appears on October 3rd, a sign that is almost exactly identical to the sign that appeared at its first coming, Jesus in a dream says, for I am coming soon. And 3 days later, this sign, the sign that we're looking at here, appears in the heavens. The sign that is a pattern of the sign at his birth and his first coming to earth. If the pattern we see of Joseph interpreting the dream, and then 3 days later, on Pharaoh's birthday, the fulfillment of that dream, it's a very real possibility that we could see the rapture of the church on this particular day. We're talking about October 3rd. But just like the sign at Christ's birth, it could be on that day or sometime in the near future. This is one of these things we're never going to know for sure until only after it happens. This is what the heavens look like at the time of Christ's birth. Instead of the planet Venus, which we see the planet Jupiter here at the time of his birth. This is the morning of September 11th, 3 BC. It's believed to be the Feast of Trumpets. This is the sign that's either heralding his birth or it is his actual birth. There's a debate on whether it's on the Feast of Trumpets here, what we see here, or many believe it was on Tabernacles, which is September 25th, because Tabernacles is about Christ dwelling with us or God tabernacling with us. This is what the heavens look like 3 days prior to the Revelation 12 sign, which is about the rapture of the church. This is the day that the Christ angle, the angular measurement from the sun to the conjunction of Venus and Regulus match. That's the distance from the sun, which you can't see. It's below the horizon here. There's a distance from here to here, and that matches the Christ angle on this particular day, September 20th, 2017. This was the day my dream was pointing me to, the V shape at the end of my race in Egypt. What I believe is this is God verifying to me that this sign, the sign that we see right here, is the sign of his soon return to rapture the church. This sign occurs 3 days prior to the Revelation 12 sign. The continuing pattern of 3 that we've seen over and over and over again. This is the Revelation 12 sign, the sign of the rapture of the church. A great sign appeared in the heavens, a woman clothed with the sun. Here's the constellation Virgo. We have the sun here. This would be the head area, and this is the shoulder area. And she's clothed in the sun. She has the moon under her feet. Here are her feet. Here's the moon. And on her head, a garland of 12 stars. The constellation Leo is made up of 9 stars. And they are joined by 3 wandering stars. That would be Mercury, Venus, and Mars. Then it says, being with child, she cried out in labor and in pain to give birth. And what happens here is the planet Jupiter enters the body of the constellation. You can see it here. Here's the body. This forms the legs of the constellation here. It goes into retrograde motion. It comes down to here. It goes into a loop and comes back. And it does this in like December. So it spends 9 months in the body before it exits between the legs, just like in a normal human birth. This is the sign of the rapture of the church. This sign occurred 3 years ago. And not only that, but 3 days prior to the sign, the planet Venus, which is right here, was in conjunction with the king star Regulus. The conjunction that we're looking at here is spot on. It occurs in the middle of the night, 2 a.m. Jerusalem time. This is when Venus and Regulus are at their closest. Remember, Jesus comes as a thief in the middle of the night. From the book of Revelation, weep no more. Behold, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the root of David, has conquered, so that he can open the scroll and its 7 seals. Behold, I am coming soon. I am the Alpha and Omega, the first and the last, the beginning and the end. I am the root and the descendant of David, the bright morning star. At his first coming, it was the planet Jupiter and Regulus in conjunction that heralded his first coming. This was a striped planet with a wound. It has a giant red spot in it. In the book of Isaiah, we read that he was wounded for our transgressions, and by his stripes we are healed. He was the Lamb of God who takes away the sins of the world. In the book of Revelation, which is about his second coming, he is now the Lion of the tribe of Judah, a conquering king. He calls himself the bright morning star. In 2 Thessalonians 2:8, and then shall that wicked one be revealed, whom the Lord shall consume with the spirit of his mouth, and shall destroy with the brightness of his coming. So before he pours out his wrath on the world and Satan, he takes his bride home, and we celebrate in heaven with him for 7 years. At the end of the 7 years, we will return with him as he begins his millennial reign here on earth. Jesus is coming soon, very, very soon, and possibly even this week. And with that, I want to leave you with this. I based the title of this video on the song by MercyMe called Almost Home. This is a video that you really, really want to watch. It's really going to move you. It'll really touch your heart. For we are truly almost home.